Today is January 1st, 2026. And if you live in Tennessee, that means you have Savanna's law in effect as of today, and you get a public registry of domestic violence offenders, which is something that I hope spreads to the rest of the United States of America. So let's talk about what it is. Tennessee will become the first state in the nation to launch a public domestic violence offender registry, a new tool that supporters say could help prevent future violence by making repeat abusers easier to identify. The registry, which was created under Savanna's law, takes effect today, January 1st, and applies to people that are convicted of domestic violence offenses at least twice. It is named after Savanna Puckett, a Robertson County Sheriff's deputy who was found shot to death inside her burning home in 2022. Savanna was only 22 years old, and she passed away at the hands of her ex-boyfriend, James Jackson Kahn, who pled guilty to first-degree premeditated murder, among other charges, and is currently serving a life sentence. It wasn't until after this tragedy that investigators discovered that Kahn had a history of domestic violence and stalking. Quote, Tennessee is number 4 in states where men kill women, said Verna Wyatt with Tennessee Voices for Victims. So we have a domestic violence epidemic. What the registry includes under this new law. So under the law, the registry will be managed by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and will include the following: the offender's name, photograph, date of birth, date and county of their conviction. It will not include home addresses, social security numbers, or the driver's license information. Offenders could remain on the registry anywhere from 2 to 20 years, depending on the number of qualifying convictions. The legislation was sponsored in the House by Sabi Kumar of Springfield and had been passed with overwhelming bipartisan support in both chambers back in April of 2025. During the debate, Kumar told lawmakers that the registry could have changed the outcome for Puckett, who worked in law enforcement but was unable to easily find domestic violence-related charges connected to her partner before death. Quote, if there was a registry for such violent offenders, Savanna being involved with law enforcement would have checked it, and a tragedy could have been avoided, Kumar said on the House floor. Senate sponsor Becky Massey echoed that concern, noting that despite Puckett's position as a deputy sheriff, critical information about her partner's past was not readily accessible. Advocates for survivors, they say that the registry offers an additional layer of protection, not just for victims, but for the public at large. Quote, victims always have a fear about their offender going back out and doing the same thing to someone else, Wyatt said. It gives you a heads up. Domestic violence doesn't make sense, but the patterns do. Wyatt also stated that the registry could help people make informed decisions when dating, hiring, or trying to protect loved ones, similar to how SMECS offender registries are already used. Now, this registry is the very first of its kind, and Tennessee is the first state to establish a registry specifically for repeat domestic violence offenders. While a few states maintain broader violent offender registries, none are tailored solely to domestic violence. Past efforts in states like Texas and New York failed to gain traction, which is absolutely insane to me and mind-boggling. Lawmakers behind Savanna's law say the goal is prevention, not punishment, and giving people access to information that previously required digging through court records across multiple jurisdictions. And as somebody that digs through court records in true crime, it is your miles may vary of what you can even access, not even just by state, but by county. Now, the law also requires a person convicted of or who pleads guilty to domestic assault to register, but only if the victim agrees to the defendant being required to register. If the victim does not give consent or is not available, the court will not require a person convicted of domestic assault to register under the law. Which is one small thing about this law that obviously I don't love, because these types of convictions are very difficult on victims, and victims don't always often pursue these things because of how hard it is. However, If a court orders a defendant to register, then the court clerk must provide the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation with a copy of the qualifying conviction. This has to be done within 60 days of the date of this conviction. The public registry will be created within the TBI, and the TBI will remain it. The information is supplied by the court clerks and available to the TBI and local law enforcement agencies. There will also be a registration fee of $150 per person to register under this law. Now, a person can have their name removed from the registry by the TBI under the following circumstances. 1 year after the date of conviction, if the person has no prior convictions of domestic assault. 2 years after the date of the most recent conviction, if the defendant has one previous conviction for the offense of domestic assault. 5 years after the date of conviction, if the defendant has 2 previous convictions for the offense of domestic assault. And then 10 years after the date of the most recent conviction, if the defendant has 4 or more previous convictions for the offense of domestic assault. Or within 5 days of the TBI's receipt of a written request from a victim of the offense to remove the defendant from the registry. An advocate at a family justice center did note that there's some gaps in this bill that they hope are addressed, and that the registry will include people who have been criminally convicted, but many abusers don't actually face criminal charges. Victims may choose to get orders of protection instead in civil court. It is hard to put somebody on a registry who hasn't been convicted of a crime. There's nothing you can do to solve everything, quote, but if we can do something that solves some of it, that's important, which I agree. It was stated, quote, mothers send me pictures of their babies that say things like, this was the first birth that I had where I didn't go home and be immediately abused by my husband. This is what makes this worth it. The new law goes in effect today, along with dozens of other bills that have been passed in 2025. While this bill has some gaps noted by those that work in the family abuse sector, it is a huge step forward, And I hope it is something that continues to expand, because there has been absolutely nothing when it comes to domestic violence offenders and how we can help warn those. If you're interested in learning more of the specifics of Savanna's law, you can find more about it online, and the entire bill is posted. The bill is actually not that long. It's a few pages and it's pretty easy to read. It will give more information about the specifics of registering, what counts, how it works, and everything like that if you want to get into the details. Way to go, Tennessee, on this one. Thanks for listening. Make sure you are following me, sharing, and liking my posts. And as always, I will see you in the next one.